The battle on Xylan 4 had ended just hours ago. Smoke still rose from the blackened ground. The red sun hung low in the sky, painting the battlefield in shades of orange and blood. Wrecked machines and fallen bodies covered the land, silent now. It was the kind of silence that made your heart feel heavy. Kira, a young alien girl from the Interspecies, moved slowly across the broken land. Her skin was pale blue, her large eyes full of fear. She wore no armor, no weapon, only a torn cloth that once belonged to a healer's robe. She had come to look for her brother, who had fought in the battle. Her people were peaceful farmers and healers, not soldiers. But war had reached every corner of the galaxy, and no one was safe anymore. As she stepped carefully between the twisted metal and burning wreckage, she called out softly, "Varric, are you here?" Only the wind answered. Then, without warning, boom. A hidden mine exploded beneath her left foot. The blast sent her flying into the air, her body twisting in pain. When she landed, she screamed a sharp, heartbreaking sound. Her leg was gone, blown off below the knee. Blood poured into the sand, and her eyes rolled back as she tried to breathe through the shock. Not far away, human soldiers were setting up a field base. One of them, a tall, tired-looking man with gray in his beard, heard the explosion. His name was Dr. Elias Grant, a combat medic from Earth. He had seen many wounds, many deaths, but this scream sounded different. He grabbed his medical bag and ran toward the sound. "Wait," soldiers shouted. "That's the enemy zone." Elias didn't stop. "Could be one of ours," he replied without turning. As he got closer, he saw the girl lying in the sand. Her leg was missing, her body shaking, and when he saw her face, he paused. She wasn't human. She was a Treen, an alien. For a moment, Elias hesitated. Back at base, people would question this, maybe even punish him. But then he looked at her again. How young she looked, how scared, tears mixed with dust on her face. He had seen that same look on dying children during the first battles of the war. He stepped forward and knelt beside her. "It's okay," he said gently, opening his bag. "I'm going to help you." Kira looked up through blurry eyes. You're human," she whispered. He nodded. "Yeah, and you're alive. So I'm not going to let you die here." He sprayed a freezing agent on her leg to slow the bleeding. Then he took out a portable med pod. It was a compact device, used to stabilize wounded soldiers. He placed it under her thigh, and a soft green light wrapped around the wound. Her screams stopped, and her breathing became steady. Still, others nearby weren't happy. A group of soldiers appeared in the distance. Watching him, one of them shouted, "Elias, she's not one of us. Leave her." He didn't answer. He was focused on saving her from his bag. He pulled out a synthetic leg, smooth and silver. It was a prototype, a gift from a cybernetic engineer he had once saved. He never thought he'd use it this way. He looked at Kira and said, "I can attach this leg. It will hurt, but it'll let you walk again." Kira's voice was weak. "Why are you helping me? No one else would." Elias looked at the sky for a moment. "My sister died in the first wave of the war," he said. "Her medics left her behind because she wasn't important enough." He turned back to Kira. "I swore I'd never leave someone to die, no matter who they are." Kira nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. Elias began the process, attaching the synthetic leg with precision. As he worked, the sun dipped lower, shadows growing longer. The wind carried the sound of distant engines, more soldiers coming. But Elias didn't stop. He wrapped her in a thermal blanket, activated the leg's energy cell, and helped her sit up. She looked down at her new leg, then up at him. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled slightly. "Try not to step on another mine," he said, trying to lighten the moment. But behind them, the soldiers kept watching, their expressions unreadable. Trouble was coming. The tent was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels too heavy for a hospital. Rain tapped against the plastic walls, mixing with the hum of distant engines. Kira opened her eyes slowly. She was lying on a soft cot. Wrapped in a warm gray blanket, her head ached, her vision was cloudy. Then she remembered the explosion, the mine, the pain. Her hand moved down to touch her leg. But what she felt was not flesh, it was metal, smooth and cold. Panic rose in her chest. She tried to sit up, but the pain returned in the corner of the room. A human stood watching her. He wore a brown field coat and had tired eyes. It was Elias, the medic. "You're safe now," he said softly, walking over. "Your body is healing, and the leg. It's working." Kira stared at him, breathing fast. "Why? Why did you help me?" she asked, her voice shaking. Elias sat on a stool beside the cot. He looked at her for a long second before speaking. "I had a choice," he said. "I could walk away, or I could help." He pointed to the room outside. "Out there, they would have left you in the dirt, but I made my choice," he added, "and I'll stand by it." Just then, the tent flap opened. 2 soldiers stepped in, both human, both wearing hard expressions. One of them, a captain named Reyes, frowned. As he looked at Kira, "You're in trouble, Grant," he said, ignoring her. "You disobeyed orders and brought in an alien." "She's not a threat," Elias replied firmly. "She's a wounded civilian." Captain Reyes folded his arms. "She's a Treen," he said, and the Treens supported the rebels. "She doesn't belong here." Elias stood, his tone calm but strong. "She belongs wherever life matters." Kira watched quietly, confused and scared. She didn't understand why they hated her without knowing her. She tried to speak, but her voice was too weak. The captain turned and left, but his final words echoed in the room. "You have 24 hours to fix this," he said, "or command will." That night, the camp grew colder. Kira sat beside a small heater, her new leg clicking softly as she practiced moving it. Elias sat across from her, cleaning his tools in silence. Outside, soldiers whispered and pointed. Some stared with hate. Others with confusion. "You shouldn't have done it," a young soldier named Lane said quietly, stepping into the tent. "She's the enemy." Elias didn't look up. "She's a person," he replied. Lane shook his head and left. Kira lowered her eyes. "I don't want to bring you danger," she said. "You should have left me." Elias chuckled softly. "I've made worse decisions," he said, then looked at her seriously. "But not this one." He opened a small box and handed her a soft, glowing stone. It was a translator stone, used by medics to talk to alien patients with it. Kira could now speak in human tongue more clearly. "I need to learn," she said, holding the stone. "I want to understand your people," he nodded, "and I want them to understand you." Later that night, a small drone buzzed near the tent. It dropped a folded paper at the door and flew off. Elias picked it up and read it, his face turning dark. "What is it?" Kira asked. He showed her the note. It had no name, just a warning. "Remove the alien, or we'll do it for you." Kira's hands trembled. "They want me dead," she whispered. Elias looked at her and spoke gently, but with fire in his voice. "Then we'll make sure they don't get what they want in the morning." Elias went to the base commander. He argued for Kira's right to stay. "She saved a soldier once." Elias lied. "She used alien medicine to stop the bleeding. It means she has value to this base." The commander didn't believe him, but politics were heavy. A rumor had started among some of the medics Kira might have knowledge the army could use, so they allowed her to stay, for now, under observation, back in the tent. Kira practiced walking again. She fell many times, but each time she got back up. Elias watched with quiet pride. "You're stronger than they think," he said. Kira smiled weakly. "So are you." The camp had made their choice. Alrans with suspicion, but Elias had made his own choice protection with hope, and Kira. She had chosen to live, not just survive, but to learn, grow, and maybe some to fight back. The wind howled outside the medical tent, carrying dust and cold air through the cracks in the canvas. Inside, the space was warm, filled with quiet beeping machines and the soft hum of a heater. Kira stood with her hands clenched at her sides. Staring down at the floor, her new synthetic leg trembled beneath her. She took a step, then another. Her balance wobbled, and she fell hard on her side. Elias didn't rush over. He stood nearby, arms crossed, letting her try again. "You're doing better than yesterday," he said calmly. Kira gritted her teeth and sat up. "You call this better?" she asked, voice full of frustration. Elias smiled a little. "You haven't cursed at me in 3 languages today, so I'd say it's progress." Kira couldn't help but let out a small laugh. Over the last few days, something had changed. She had gone from being a terrified girl in pain to someone who could smile, even in a human camp, and Elias had gone from being just a medic to something more. A protector, a teacher, and perhaps a friend. That evening, Elias brought in a metal tray with 2 cups of steaming broth. "It's not much," he said, "but it's hot, and it won't poison you." Kira took the cup and smelled it carefully. "Smells like boiled socks," she muttered. "That's because it is," Elias replied with a straight face. She laughed again, shaking her head. "You humans have strange food, strange rules, and strange hearts. Is that a compliment?" Elias asked, raising an eyebrow. "Maybe," she said, sipping the broth slowly. After dinner, Elias took out a small device the size of a pebble. "Translator training," he said, tossing it to her. "Repeat after me." He spoke a sentence. In human English, she followed, her accent thick but improving each day. Together, they practiced words, phrases, jokes, even curse words, much to her delight. Later that night, Kira sat on her cot, turning the synthetic foot left and right. She whispered, "This leg. It's not just metal." Elias looked over from his desk. "It's made with human nerve tech," he explained. "Signals from your body control it. Like a real leg." Kira nodded slowly. "But it's more than tech," she said. "It's the reason I'm still here." Elias didn't respond right away. He looked at her, really looked, and said, "Yeah, well, maybe I needed a reason too." Just then, the tent flaps opened. Private Lane entered. Holding a small pouch. "Commander says she can have these," he muttered, dropping the pouch on the table. Inside were clean clothes, food rations, and a data chip. He paused before leaving, looking at Kira, then at Elias. "You trust her too much," he said quietly. Elias didn't answer, and Lane left. That night, Kira couldn't sleep. She walked outside, limping slightly. The sky above was black and endless, stars shining like ice. She sat near the edge of the camp, listening to the silence. Footsteps approached, and Elias sat beside her. "Can't sleep?" he asked. Kira shook her head. "I keep thinking," she said, "what if I had died in that field?" Elias was silent for a moment. "You didn't," he said at last. "That's what matters." Kira turned to him. "Back on my planet, we were told humans were cruel, selfish, and only cared about power." Elias chuckled softly. "Most of us are," he said, "but not all." She nodded slowly. "I don't think you're cruel," she said. "I think you're lonely." Those words hung in the air. Elias didn't deny it. Instead, he looked out at the stars. "I lost someone," he said quietly. "My sister, she was a field doctor, just like me. She died trying to help people who didn't help her back." Kira reached over and touched his arm gently. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He smiled sadly. "I think she would have liked you." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed. Through the camp, flames lit up the sky, coming from the north wall. Alarms screamed to life. Elias grabbed his medbag. "Stay here," he shouted, running into the chaos. But Kira didn't stay. She ran after him. Limping but determined, they reached the outer wall, where smoke poured from a broken storage unit. A soldier was trapped beneath debris, crying out in pain. Kira didn't wait for orders. She knelt beside the man, examined his crushed arm, and pulled out a sharp needle from Elias's kit. "I've seen this before," she said. "Pressure here. Stop the bleeding." Elias helped, surprised by her calm voice and steady hands. Minutes later, the bleeding stopped. The soldiers stabilized. Others watched in silence. Unsure what to say, as the fire died down, Elias looked at Kira. "You just saved a human," he said. She looked at him and replied, "I thought life mattered." From a distance, soldiers who once stared with doubt now looked at her differently. Not as a wounded alien, but as someone who had made a choice. Someone who belonged. The bond between them, Elias and Kira, was no longer about rescue. It was about trust, about survival, and maybe about something bigger. Dark clouds rolled over the sky of Xylan 4. The sun had vanished behind ash and smoke, giving the military base an eerie, gray look. Inside the med tent, Kira adjusted the straps on her synthetic leg. Each day, she moved faster, stronger. But today, her heart was not steady. She had felt it all morning: whispers, silence when she entered rooms, and eyes that followed her with cold suspicion. Elias noticed too, while packing supplies for the Northern Patrol. He kept glancing toward the tent entrance. "Something's wrong," Kira said, her voice quiet. Elias paused. "You feel it too?" he asked. Kira nodded. "It's like they're waiting for something." That night, Kira couldn't sleep again. She stared at the stars from inside the tent. Her synthetic leg resting in sleep mode, Elias sat at a nearby table, typing notes. Into a small datapad, he was logging patient records, supply usage, and secretly recording what he had learned about her leg's integration. Then, a soft beep sounded from the table. A message had arrived on a hidden COM channel Elias rarely used. He frowned and opened it. There was no name, no code, just one line. "They're watching you, Grant. Get rid of the treen, or they'll get rid of you." Elias froze. Kira noticed his face change. "What is it?" She asked. Sitting up slowly, he hesitated, then handed her the message. She read it. Once, then again, her hands shaking slightly. "I knew they hated me," she whispered. "But this..." Elias rubbed his face with both hands. "There's something deeper going on," he said. "This isn't just about fear. It's political. Maybe even organized." Kira stood, her mechanical leg clicking softly as she moved. "We have to leave," she said, but Elias shook his head. "If we run now, they'll say we're traitors. We need proof, and we need to know who's behind this." The next day, Elias left to deliver medical supplies to Outpost Echo 9, a smaller unit just 5 miles away. Kira stayed behind to rest and gather information. She had learned how to really listen while pretending to clean or walk by. That's how she overheard it. In a corner of the base, 2 soldiers whispered near the radio tower. "Command wants him gone quietly. Maybe a training accident. He's too close to that alien, and she's not just a wounded girl. You saw the leg, right? That's not standard tech." Kira's heart dropped. They were planning something, not just against her, but against Elias too. She ran to his desk and pulled out his portable memory chip. She quickly recorded what she had heard, her hands moving fast. Then she left the tent quietly. Heading toward the base archive room, inside, rows of old computers and dusty records waited untouched. She hacked into a forgotten terminal using a code Elias had once used to unlock an old medical log. To her shock, she found files labeled Treen Program, Biointegration Testing, Medic Override Project. Kira's eyes widened. Some humans were experimenting with alien tech and they had used people like her to test it. Maybe her leg, maybe others like her. She wasn't saved because of kindness alone. She might have been part of something darker. Just then, the door slammed shut. Kira turned and saw a tall figure in armor. Private Lane. "I told them you'd snoop," he said coldly. Kira stepped back, her leg powering up. "I know what you're doing," she said. Lane raised a small weapon. "You were never supposed to live," he whispered. But Grant changed the plan. Before he could fire, Kira kicked over a table, hitting the emergency alarm switch. Red lights flashed, and loud sirens filled the room. Lane cursed and ran, disappearing into the smoke-filled hallway. Kira limped back to the tent, breathing hard. Minutes later, Elias returned from Echo 9 to find chaos. Kira told him everything: the message, the files, the attempt to silence her. He sat down, running a hand through his hair. "They're not just scared of you," he said. "They're scared of what you might reveal." They knew now. This wasn't just fear, or racism, or wartime tension. This was a hidden war, one that moved in silence. Beneath flags and uniforms, a war against truth. Kira placed the memory chip in Elias's hand. "It's all here," she said. "We can expose them." Elias looked at her, then at the tent flap swaying in the wind. He knew what this meant. They couldn't stay in the camp anymore. Too many eyes, too many lies. He packed his bag slowly. "Pack light," he said. "We leave at dawn, outside." The storm clouds returned, but this time, they didn't bring just rain. They brought war, not the loud kind with bullets and bombs, but the silent kind with secrets, betrayals, and choices that could shake worlds. The sky over Xylan 4 was calm, too calm. Dawn crept across the camp like a shadow pretending to be light. Birds didn't sing on this planet, and the silence only made the tension heavier. Elias finished strapping the last piece of gear into his pack. He glanced over his shoulder at Kira, who stood in the corner of the tent. She wore a dark cloak now, her synthetic leg hidden under loose fabric. Her eyes were sharper, colder. She wasn't the frightened girl from the minefield anymore. She had changed, but they had waited too long. Just as Elias turned to leave, the flap of the tent burst open. 6 soldiers stormed in. Rifles raised, faces hard. "Elias Grant." The officer barked. "You're under arrest for treason and harboring an alien enemy." Kira stepped forward. But Elias raised a hand to stop her. He looked the officer dead in the eye. "You have no proof," he said, voice steady. The officer smirked. "We don't need proof when command gives the order." 2 soldiers grabbed Elias and pushed him to the ground. Kira screamed, trying to fight them off, but one of the men struck her with the butt of his rifle. She collapsed, dizzy, her leg shutting down from the impact. As they dragged Elias away, he shouted over his shoulder, "Kira, run! You know the truth now. Don't stop." She crawled toward the corner of the tent, blood running down her forehead. From a hidden compartment under the cot, she pulled out the small chip, the one containing all the stolen files. Her hands trembled, but her eyes burned with fury. Outside, the camp watched silently. Some soldiers whispered, others looked away. No one helped, no one dared. Elias was thrown into a cold metal cell deep beneath the command tower. His hands were cuffed behind his back, and blood stained the side of his face. Hours passed, maybe longer. Then a man entered the room. Wearing a long black coat and a pin with a sharp silver triangle. "You've caused problems, Doctor," the man said. "We had plans for the Treen girl, but you got in the way." Elias didn't reply. The man leaned closer. "You think you helped her, but she's not just a girl," he whispered. "She's a prototype." Those words echoed in Elias's mind. Prototype. What did that mean? Back at the tent, Kira was gone. She had escaped through the maintenance tunnel beneath the camp, something Elias had told her about weeks ago. She moved fast, despite the pain, holding the chip close to her chest. There was only one place left. To go and old rebel scientist who lived outside the war zones. Someone Elias once trusted. Someone who might still help. She reached the desert ridge by nightfall. There, hidden under a rusted shipwreck, was a small shelter. Inside, dim lights flickered and old machines buzzed like dying insects. The scientist was there, older than she imagined, with robotic arms and glowing eyes. He looked at her for a long moment, then said, "You're the one they call Kira." She nodded and handed him the chip. "I need your help to save Elias," she said. The scientist plugged the chip into his terminal. Data flashed across the screen: classified experiments, cybernetic projects, tree anatomy scans. "Ah," he said. "So the rumors were true. They used your kind for testing your leg. Your neural codites, not just healing tech. It's military-grade hybrid programming." Kira stepped back, shocked. "You mean? They made me into a weapon?" The scientist nodded slowly, "And they planned to erase you once they were done." Her hands curled into fists. "I'm not going to let them win," she said. "I'm going back for Elias." The scientist raised one mechanical brow. Then, "Let me upgrade your odds over the next few hours." He modified the leg, unlocking hidden systems buried deep inside: extra speed, shock resistance, magnetic grip for climbing, and something else: a hidden injection needle with a paralyzing agent. "Just in case," he said with a grin. By morning, Kira was gone. She moved like wind over sand, faster and quieter than before. Inside the base, Elias remained locked, bruised, exhausted, but not broken. Then, an explosion shook the outer wall. Soldiers rushed to respond, but it was a diversion in the confusion. Kira slipped into the lower levels, dressed in stolen armor. She reached Elias's cell just as two guards entered to take him away. Without a word, she struck one across the face, dropping him instantly. The other turned, but she activated the injector in her leg and hit him in the neck. He fell, paralyzed. Elias stared at her in disbelief. "You came back," he said. Kira smiled, her eyes filled with fire. "Of course I did," she replied. "You saved me first." Together, they escaped through the old tunnel, alarms ringing behind them. But this time, they weren't just running, they had the truth. They had each other, and they had a mission. Asterisk. The wind screamed through the jagged canyons of Xylan 4. Ash fell from the sky like slow snow, black and silent. Kira and Elias stood on a high ridge, looking down at the abandoned outpost below. It had once been a science station. Now, it was their last hope. "This is where it started," Elias whispered. "They tested alien-human tech here before the war." Kira looked at the cracked satellite dishes, the broken towers, and the silence. "This is where I was made," she said, voice low. "Not born, made." They entered the ruined structure, dust rising with every step. The wall still hummed faintly with leftover energy. Inside, Kira found a cracked mirror. She stared at her reflection, her synthetic leg shining under her cloak. "Part of me is a lie," she said. Elias stepped beside her. "No," he said. "Part of you is more." They moved to the main control room. Elias activated a terminal with a hand scanner from his old medical ID. The screen flickered to life, glowing pale blue. "Still works," he said, surprised. "I can use this to send a broadcast, a message across the neutral systems censored." Kira looked at him. "Will they believe us?" she asked. He nodded. "Maybe not all," he said, "but some will, and that's enough to make a stand." She helped him power up the satellite link, connecting to an open network. They uploaded everything: Kira's medical scans, the hidden lab files, the video of Elias being arrested, all of it proof of betrayal, of hidden war, of injustice. Then, Kira stepped in front of the camera. She took a breath and began, "I am Kira of the Treen." She said, "I was injured in war, and a human saved me. But I was more than injured, was used as a weapon, as a test, as a secret. But I am not a secret anymore." The message went live across several fringe systems and was picked up by rogue reporters and resistance channels. Some laughed, some listened, and a few began to believe. The response was faster than they expected by nightfall. 3 ships landed near the old outpost. One carried Captain Juno, a rebel soldier who had once served with Elias. Another ship brought Kale, a Treen tracker who had seen his people vanish under human command. And the third ship? It was unmarked, but filled with engineers, medics, and quiet soldiers tired of lies. Juno stepped forward. Looking at Kira, "You really walked out of there alive?" she asked. Kira nodded. "With help," she replied, glancing at Elias. Juno turned to Elias. "You always did like impossible patience," she said with a smirk. He shrugged. "Maybe I just like underdogs." They spent the next 2 days fortifying the outpost. The engineers activated the old shield generators. Kira helped connect the base to a nearby mining drone system, turning tools into defenses. She wasn't just a survivor now. She was a strategist, a fighter, a symbol. They knew the silence wouldn't last, and they were right. On the 3rd day, a fleet of military dropships appeared on the horizon. The same force that had arrested Elias. The same group that wanted Kira erased. They were coming to finish the job. Elias stood at the front wall with Juno. He held a basic rifle, something he hadn't used in years. "Still remember how to shoot?" Juno asked. "Only if I close one eye," he said. Kira stood nearby, scanning targets using her leg's upgraded interface. "This isn't about fighting back," she said, "it's about being seen." The first wave hit the wall hard. Smoke, fire, noise was chaos, but the outpost held. Kira moved through the battle like wind, her leg giving her speed and power. She saved 2 soldiers using old Treen herbs, dropped 1 enemy with her built-in injector. Every movement told a story, not of war, but of will. Elias dragged a wounded fighter into cover, then returned to patch another. He moved like he was born for it, because he was. By the 2nd hour, the enemy began to fall back. Not because they were losing, but because they were hesitating. Some of their own had seen Kira fight. They had heard the message. And some were beginning to question their orders. In the quiet that followed, Elias looked out at the battlefield. Smoke curled up like ghosts, and from the radio came a single message. "Ceasefire. New orders pending." Kira looked at Elias, her face streaked with ash and sweat. "What does that mean?" She asked. Elias smiled just a little. "It means someone out there listened." They had made a stand, not just with weapons, but with truth, and for the first time in a long time. Change felt possible, but the war wasn't over. Not yet. The smoke was still rising from the battlefield. Weapons lay quiet in the dust, and boots no longer marched across the stone. For the first time in weeks, there was stillness. Kira stood on the balcony of the old science outpost, her eyes fixed. On the sky, stars blinked softly in the black above, and the cold air carried no gunfire behind her. The broadcast station hummed silently, still powered from their last message. Elias stood beside her, leaning slightly on a metal railing. His uniform was torn, his arm was bandaged. "But his spirit's unbroken. They didn't attack today," he said, voice low. Kira nodded. "They're watching, waiting," she replied. "They want to see who we really are." Just then, the communicator crackled. A voice came through. Not military, not rebels, something new. "This is Peace Command Unit 17. It said, "We have received the data you shared, the files, the evidence, the message. We are en route to your position." Elias raised an eyebrow. "That's either a rescue or a trap," he said. Kira tightened her grip on the railing. We'll find out soon enough. By mid-morning, 3 sleek ships landed outside the outpost. Unlike the warcrafts before, these were silver, smooth, and unarmed. From one of them stepped a woman in a white coat, her eyes bright. She walked with calm steps and carried no weapon. I'm Director Sira Tan, she said, of the Interspecies Peace Division. She looked at Kira and nodded. We've reviewed everything, she said. What you exposed has already shaken command. Juno and Kale stood nearby, ready in case things went bad. Elias stepped forward. So, what happens now? He asked. Sira looked at Kira carefully. That depends on her, she replied. Kira blinked. Me? She asked, confused. Sira nodded. You've become more than a symbol, she said. You're proof that unity is possible. A treen saved by a human, upgraded by both, and still standing for peace. Kira looked around at the soldiers and engineers who had stood beside her. She thought of those who doubted her, hated her, tried to end her, and then she looked at Elias. You trusted me when no one else did, she whispered. He smiled softly. You earned it. Sira stepped forward. We want to take you to the Galactic Council, she said. Not as a prisoner, but as a voice for every race, used, ignored, or betrayed. Elias frowned. They'll try to use her, he said. Turn her into a symbol for politics. Sira shook her head. They already tried that, she said, and it failed. This time, she decides who she is. Kira stepped closer to Sira. If I go with you, Elias comes too. She said. Sira raised a brow, surprised. He's just a medic. Kira's voice hardened. He's the reason I'm alive. He's not just anything. Sira nodded slowly. Then you both go. They left at sunset, the silver ships rising slowly into the sky, leaving the outpost. Behind, below them, the world turned red and gold. A planet where war had broken many things, but not everything. The council chambers were large, made of glass and light. Kira stood before 100 voices, each from different corners of the galaxy. Behind her stood Elias, silent but strong. She told her story, every part. The mine, the pain, the synthetic leg, the fear, the rescue, the betrayal, the stand. She told it in her voice, not perfect, not polished, but true. The room was quiet when she finished. Then came the questions. Why? Trust humans after what they did. What makes you different? Are you dangerous? Kira answered, each with calm truth. I don't trust humans, she said. I trust Elise. And he showed me something no program, no weapon, no machine could. She raised her synthetic leg. This doesn't make me less, she said. It makes me more. I'm not just Treen, she continued. I'm proof that even broken things can come together and make something stronger. And if we want peace, real peace, we need to stop dividing life by species, by systems, by fear. We need to choose something harder. We need to choose unity. Silence followed again. Then slowly, voices began to speak. Not all agreed, but many did. Enough to make change possible. Later that night, Kira and Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the stars. You spoke like a leader, Elias said. Kira laughed. I was just honest, she said. That's rare enough to sound brave, he replied. A small drone floated past, displaying a newsfeed, images of the outpost battle, clips from Kira's speech, and one headline glowing bright. Alien. Girl and human medic spark first peace talks in years. Kira smiled softly. Do you think it will last? She asked. Elias looked out into the stars. Maybe, he said, but if not, we'll stand again. She reached over and took his hand. Two species, once enemies, now bound by truth, pain, and hope. Because sometimes, the most human thing isn't being perfect, it's choosing to care.